Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Yes, we're excited. You can see we're all looking glam, really excited to have this going. So if you're joining us, just let us know where you're joining from. Feel free to interact with us, ask your questions. As you can see, Mommy Mo is well seated. She's ready. Okay, so we'll be starting this off now. And if you're just watching us for the first time, you're on Foundation for Family Affairs. You're on our YouTube channel. And at Foundation for Family Affairs, our mission is to connect hearts and raise healthy families. Okay, so from time to time, as we take people through our coaching program, Intimacy Builder program, we have this problem. I won't call it a problem. It's not a problem. We have this topic coming up again and again. You know, it's a global world now, as we all know. So a lot of people are beginning to find their significant other from other cultures, other races. And there's that question as to how do we do this? Okay, and we thought this is someone who's walked the journey. She's been on it for 36 years. She recently celebrated her 36th anniversary. She doesn't look it at all. Her looks would tell otherwise. But yes, she has the experience. So we thought she's happy in marriage. She's done it right. It might just help a lot more people. For people who will be on with us live and those who will be watching up to now, to pick a few things from her life, from her journey. And so we're so excited to have her. Thank you for joining us, Mommy Mo. Her name is Modupe Ehirim. Thank you, Mommy Mo. She's fondly called Mommy Mo, so you hear us call her Mommy Mo a lot.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, ma'am. Please tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, so anyone watching you for the first time will be able to, you know, have a bit of knowledge about you.
Okay. I've been I trained at chemical. I worked as a I ran a bookstore. And now I'm a married. I'm married. Ethnic marriage. I have 4 grandchildren. And I just love to help them to get married.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, the Right Fit Marriage Academy. We are on that group, and yes, we learn a lot. We do. We learn a lot, and it's just beautiful how you're happy to pour out to share your experience. I saw what you put up yesterday about your journey to being a mother-in-law. Is it? The journey to being and I really enjoyed reading your comments on this. So yes, if you haven't followed her, please look for the Right Fit Academy, the Right Fit Marriage Academy on Facebook, and Instagram. Join the community. You will learn a lot. Okay, as well as go on, please.
I said as well as you.
And you
as well as you too.
Sorry about that. You too.
Definitely at the end we're going to put all your we're going to put all your social media handle on this video so that people can actually follow her and join her and subscribe to her YouTube channel. She has lovely content on there. Very well.
Just click on the description box, you'll see the links there. Okay, so Mommy, if you had to do it again, what would you do differently?
If I had to, it's just one. I would actually want to learn language. That's the primary thing. And then following on that, the plan regime is my children to understand and speak the language. That's the only thing that I would do different because as I grow older, the things I want to see, the principles I want to see, the people who are not having the language from doing that.
Yeah, fantastic.
Brilliant, Mommy. We have some people joining us, and some are saying, hello, people. Glad to be here. Relationship Builders Forum. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. So we're going to ask, so if you were to give advice to someone who is considering that path, what will you tell them, or like, what are the key things you tell them to consider?
If you're considering an intercultural marriage, what should you pay attention to? It's very important to realize that who you are at this point in time is a sum of who you were born, where you were born, who nurtured you, the life experiences and the life exposures that you have had. And that is, I call that your unique map of the world. So you arrive at marriage with a unique map of the world. Since your partner, especially in an intercultural marriage, did not have an identical experience as you, it's very important to sit down. And I mean that figuratively, you would sit down, but it means that there's got to be plenty of discussion, not so much interviewing one another to see if you meet the mark, but actually trying to understand what this person's unique map of the world is. And it starts even with the word marriage. When we talk about marriage, everybody just thinks that me and you, we know what we're talking about. But if I grew up in a single parent household and you grew up in a polygamous household, right there and then, when we use the word marriage, we are talking about different things. So now take that out and move it that, I'm from one ethnic group and you're from another ethnic group. I guarantee you that when you use that word marriage, what you understand by it is different. Recently, I've been watching Korean drama, and every now and again, I will exclaim to my husband, wow, I cannot live in Korea. Wow, I cannot live in Korea. And why? Just because I saw the family setting and it's so alien to what I am familiar with. I had to remind myself that there is nothing wrong with what the Koreans are doing. It's just that I've had 60 years of being a Nigerian. So if you take a fish out of water and take it to the land, it's guaranteed to be uncomfortable. The people on land are not the people who are making the fish uncomfortable. What is making the fish uncomfortable is because it is no longer in water. It is now living on land and it needs to find out how to survive on land. So if anybody is approaching an intercultural marriage, everybody needs to think this, but the people in intercultural marriage in particular need to be aware of this. In today's world, we tend to think that, oh, Chidi and Victor met, they met on campus, they know one another and everything, they'll do great. There is a lot in their life that they themselves are not even conscious of, that has been fashioned, that has been groomed, that has been put in place by all of these other things which they don't pay attention to. And so if they don't intentionally think about it and communicate it to one another, it will show up in the marriage, and then they would think that perhaps I made a wrong choice.
Deep. I like what you said when you said someone who comes from a single parent home and someone who comes from a polygamous home, their perspective about marriage, though you are using the same words, but their understanding and perspective about marriage is completely different. And one of the ways to bridge that gap is constant conversation. That's why we try to encourage singles. When you are preparing to get married, that's not the time to begin to do all the touching. You are going to fast track the whole conversations and overtake it, overrun it, hijack it practically, because you are supposed to be having some meaningful conversations to even know whether what this person understands as marriage is similar to yours. You're going to be spending the rest of your mommy just celebrated 36 years. So she has spent 36 years of her life with someone her husband. So there are conversations that we need to have, and these are very important conversations that sometimes people overlook, or they be like, love is all that matters. I love him, he loves me, me and you against the world, everybody bye. You know, that's things that we need to really put into perspective. Yeah.
Now, talking about marriage, when after marriage, the early years of your marriage, what cultural shocks were you faced? Would like to know.
You know, you'd be amazed at the things that, you know, fluster you and throw you out of place. Let me give you some background. For me, I think I have my late mother to be immensely grateful to. She was a woman way ahead of her time. So when I said to my parents, I met the guy I want to marry and he's Igbo, my mom went to town, interviewed her friends, you know, who were Igbo people, you know, found out, you know, when a girl is married in Igbo land, what does it mean, you know, and so on and so forth. And she sat me down and she educated me. And then she said, you know, when you marry this guy, you won't be able to say, I can't do this because I'm a Yoruba person. Because when you marry, it wasn't a case of struggling to see who would whose culture or tradition will prevail. It's just that it's important in a family that you folks know what are the principles that are guiding your marriage, you know, and so on and so forth. So, you know, in the early years of my marriage, for example, when we're going to the village, I wasn't even taking dresses to the village. I used to take double wrapper because my mom came back and said, if you're a missus in the village, you're not supposed to tie a single wrapper. So what it means is that I didn't have so much shock because all of these conversations had prepared me. Secondly, myself and my husband, we had defined what our own intercultural marriage was going to be. We actually discussed it and we agreed that we were going to be an Igbo family. It shocks many people that I, a smart woman, just agreed that everything in our house would be Igbo. But it wasn't a decision that we arrived at very lightly. We live in a country where you come from is very important. And sometimes if you're somebody who people are not sure where you belong to, it can put you into a lot of trouble. So we looked at the implications of an intercultural marriage for our own children, and we said, okay, we will be Igbo people. So we chose that we were going to be eating Igbo food, we were going to be doing stuff Igbo way, you know, we were going to put Igbo practices into our home. So we had these conversations way ahead of time. So when we got married, some of the things that shock people that, how can they say I should do this? Why will I do that? For me, it was not there because we already had this. I think another thing that also greatly helped was that my church was also way ahead of their time in premarital counseling. So the book they used for us, Before You Say I Do, it's a workbook. And in this, so what I said in my opening statement about you understanding what marriage meant to you, we had to go through that. You had to think what was marriage for you. Your partner had to think what was marriage. So all of this preparation meant that I was prepared that stuff would happen in my marriage, but they were happening not because we were wrong for one another or because somebody wanted to take advantage of me, but because that is just what happens. I remember my mom saying to me, my first trip to the village with my husband and my baby, saying that, you know, Dupe, when you get there, if people are talking, you don't understand the language, don't assume that they're talking about you, don't assume that, you know, they are abusing you. And she said, you know, when you approach them with a smile. So till today in my community, everybody thinks I'm a really great woman. Knowing how human minds work, a number of those conversations were definitely abusing me. But when I approached them with a smile, they were disarmed and I went about my duty. So I didn't begin to think somebody was bad or good. I must also say, that I found out that a number of these things that were happening, it was also because the people were afraid. In our country, you remember, there had been a civil war. And in the civil war, the ethnic group that my husband comes from had to flee. And, so for them, marriage was, if you marry this person who is from somewhere else, if a war breaks out again, what will happen? Will she stay with us or will she stay with her people? Now, they didn't say all this. They were just saying, why do you want to marry an Igbo man? Why do you want to marry a Yoruba woman? So if you looked at what they said or the way they treated me in the beginning, you're going to be thinking, what kind of people are these? If these are going to be my in-laws, I don't think I want them. But if you understood the background to why they were doing this, and that's why I say I will forever be grateful to my parents, because, they helped me to understand this. The second thing that me and my husband did that reduced the shock for us was that we also knew that we could not be a traditional Igbo family. Why? I don't have Igbo origin. I don't have a village to point at. I was already 27 when I married my husband, and I knew absolutely nothing about Igbo tradition and culture. So expecting our new relationship, our home, our family to be a picture of the Igbo traditional family was unrealistic. So we also agreed that we were going to be a modern family. I will have a career. My husband said, God didn't give you the brain that you have, We agreed that we were going to do joint finance. We agreed that we were going to have equal representation in decision making. But we also agreed that if there is no consensus when we want to make a decision, my husband's position will prevail if the decision had to be made immediately, because a family is an organization. An organization has to continue going on regardless of how the people feel, the people in the organization feel. So because we had all of these things, we also defined our values. We knew that family was very important to us and that healthy relationships were also important to us. And then finally, we told ourselves that, look, everybody is so sure that we are going to fail. Because unlike now, marriages like ours were not very common. So we have to look at ourselves in the face and say, are we going to give them an opportunity to say, I told you so? So because of all of these things, when the preparation I had, the discussions myself and my husband had already, so I already knew that, okay, we're going to be seeing a lot of things. So perhaps the things happened, but I wasn't shocked by them. That's what I would say. So I don't want the listeners to go away with the impression that everything just went smoothly. No, of course, like, in Yoruba culture, if you have a baby, 7 days later, the baby is named. In Igbo culture, I didn't even know this was the case. And my husband said, oh no, we're not going to do Omugwo till the baby is about 6 months. And I was flustered because all my relatives, all my friends, everybody is saying, so where is the naming ceremony going to take place, And my husband was saying, we are not going to do any naming ceremony. It was my parents who stepped in. And my father said, oh, Dupe, anybody who is asking you where the naming ceremony is going to take place, just tell them it's my house. And then on that day, my parents cooked and sent food over to me. I said, anybody who comes to your house thinking it's going to take place in your house, you don't need to say anything. Tell them the baby's name and give them the food. You don't even need to call your husband and ask him to talk to them. So, that is something that could have shaken us, but understanding that this was not a combat, this was not, one person trying to have his way over another. I mean, this happened within the first 12 months of our marriage. So, I mean, we're still getting to know one another. Of course, 6 months later, when we were having the Omugwo, we all came and shook our bums, and really danced and everything. I didn't invite the people in my family and say to them that, you know, this should happen. I remember also that when myself and my sister, I had my second child and my sister had her first child. And, you know, my family thought we should have a birthday party, and my husband didn't think that we should have a birthday party. My father said, that's not a problem. I want to celebrate the birthday of my two children. I'm going to buy a goat for this one. So I have to buy a goat for your own son as well. And whatever it is you like, you can do with the goat. So we actually had a party, but this, you know, it wasn't a, why won't you let us do it this way? It was just an understanding that, look, like I said, we came to marriage with unique maps of the world. It is guaranteed that those maps of the world will clash. The skills we have to manage the situation and to negotiate it is what allows the marriage to go smoothly. There would always be those culture shocks. And I will tell you more as we go along, even for people who are not in intercultural marriages, the kind of culture shock, because we focus on ethnic groups or races because that's the big picture. But in today's world, me and you can come from the same village. But because you have lived in the UK and I have lived in Nigeria, we have entirely different paradigms about issues. So that's because of it, when people were co-located and lived in the same villages, these clashes didn't occur much because all through their lives, they're exposed to the same paradigms. In today's world, just by reason of being alive in today's world, even your own sibling will not have entirely the same perspective on life as you have by the time you're 25.
Oh, mommy, you've been dropping it. Drop after drop, drop after drop. Like, wow, it's been explosive what you shared. And we've had a number of people just alluding to the fact that your parents played a vital role. It's just impressive how exposed and how ahead of time they were. And they're phenomenal. I know pastors, they were phenomenal. Really, really Sorry, we missed that.
Yeah, I would. My friends. I'm saying that. You know, so I'm sure amongst those who are listening to us now would be people who are already approaching the age where the children would also be wanting to get married. There is a lot that the people around also, there's a big role that they play. At the time I was marrying, if this marriage matter was left to me alone, I don't think that myself and my husband would have lasted. Why? All of that preparatory work that my parents did, I would not have had it. So I would have had the kind of experience that many people, you know, are having. So I want to appeal to the parents, you know, who are listening to us, that it's necessary also for you to educate yourself. I like that you are listening to this program now. What do I mean by that? The probability that you married a stranger is very slim. I met my husband during NYSC. Even though he was a stranger to me, we were in a community of about 17 NYSC people for a whole year. And yet I didn't ask all of these questions. But my mom knew that, you have met this man, you love him, you've been in a community with him, but there is a whole lot that you don't know. So us parents need to begin to educate ourselves as well, so that our conversations with the young people is not antagonistic and disagreeing. When you show that depth of knowledge and wisdom, your children will not have any option but to listen to you, especially when you do it in a collaborative way.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Awesome. And another thing I would want to point out, I think our relationship builders kind of captured it. They said cultural shock clash, I beg your pardon. Cultural clash will happen, but the views couple have about the marriage is key. So you and your husband were in sync regarding your perspectives on the matter. So that, I mean, that's really admirable.
Fantastic, fantastic. We've talked about how your parents play significant roles, and I would like to ask, and then you also talked about your friends. You know, first question: did you lose friends when you moved? 1, 2. What will you say to people whose parents are not giving them the green lights and they will have to go it anyway? What will you advise to, you know?
Okay. I didn't lose friends. I think it's important also for me to point out something. My parents were very open-minded and they were way ahead of their time. So my dad lost his parents early in life and he grew up far away from home and from his sister, his only sister. He was educated by Europeans. So I guess that over time he created his own culture. And the fundamentals of the culture that my father created for himself and for his own family is to look at who people were, their values, their attitude, their life perspectives before looking at where the person was from. And so even as a young child, when I would want to be friends with people, my parents would help me to understand this. You know, why do you want to be this person's friend? What do you like about them, you know, and so on and so forth. So I grew up to have friends and classmates who already knew that if I did things, I did it because I knew what I wanted. Of course, I had people who thought I was crazy. For example, I remember that when myself and my husband got married and we said all our children were going to answer Igbo names, I had a number of my friends who said, how can you lose your identity like that? And for me, it was okay for them to think that way because where they're coming from, it's understandable. But I'm the person who knew why I was doing what I was doing the way I was doing it. I remember also that one of my mom's friends, right after our wedding, had said to me, Adupe, now you are married, your husband must pay the house rent and he must, the one that really made me amused, you know, he must pay for the washman and he must give you housekeeping money. And you must make sure that he does that because if he doesn't do it, he's not a responsible man. That's what a responsible person would do. This was my mother's very close friend. Meanwhile, I had grown up in a home where my father and mother talked about money together and did things together. And in fact, I didn't even, you know, I didn't know that there were men's duties and women's duty. So I didn't lose friends because I understood that my friends, where they were coming from, the only thing was that I had a boundary around myself. Even if you were my closest friend, before I will take the advice that you are offering me, I needed to run it through my own value system and see whether it was okay. And my mom had a maxim: before you take advice from someone, you want to ask yourself, where they are, is that where you want to be? And so that usually would just solve. So my friends just knew that they could have their opinions and I will have my own opinion and we could move along. I think the other thing that I would say to people, to young adults whose parents disagree with them, some adults don't agree with me about what I am going to share. And again, if there are parents listening here, especially those who are still approaching those age, when you are training your child, hopefully you are training them to be people who are smart, people who weigh their values before they take decisions. So I hesitate to say to a young person, no, you cannot marry this person. And I've said that, and that's okay. Why? If you communicate in that matter, you have put them in a position where they have to choose between you, their parent, and somebody who they care for. And that's a tough place to be in for anybody at any age, because they don't have a response. They want you and they want the other person. Now, if you've had to marry and your parents did not agree with you, then realize that there is a breach. That breach is something that you would have to carefully rebuild, and you have no control over how they respond to you. But if relationships matter to you, this session we're having is not sufficient for me to go into all of that, but there is a way that you can strategically continue to do. Now, when I started, it looked as if everything was really fantastic. I had faults on my husband's side who didn't think that he should marry me and who showed it in the way that they were relating with me. The onus was on me. In our own case, because my family was open, there wasn't any problem. But the onus was on me and my husband to manage those situations. Were there things that we needed to do for them? We did it. If they frowned at me or looked at me or sent things that were unkind to me, I accepted that it's where they're coming from. I did not bring myself to their own level. I must say that thankfully, we did not have any toxic situations. But I would encourage anybody who is also listening to us, whether you are already in a relationship or you are approaching marriage, Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud is compulsory reading for every human being, especially the people from Africa, because cultural relationships are good. However, the way the world has expanded, you have a limit on the emotional energy that you have. The limit of your emotional energy is the reason why you cannot embrace every relationship that your culture says you must embrace when you have married. I give you a quick illustration. So we go to a church in the city. My parents' church in Lagos is also there. Then the people in my village on my husband's side have a church that they want us to be a part of. The people in my hometown have a church that they want us to be a part of. Everybody who is campaigning to me in the family about each of these church relationships has a good intention. So they're saying, you people have to be faithful members of the village church because in the final analysis, home is where you are going to rest, and so there is something to do, and, there's events to go, and so on and so forth. And I'm in Lagos, I have my job to do, I have my children to do. I just simply don't have all of that bandwidth. Once you understand that, and relationship is important to you, then you don't make everything a fight. Because those people have a different map of the world. You have to ask yourself, how do I build this? Build bridges? One of the things that is very exciting for me is that I only speak just bits of Igbo language, even after 36 years. But then I go to the village, and I do stuff for the people. So we had a gathering where I entertained my kindred people. And after the nice food and everything, they say, oh, call our wife and let us thank her. And then they thanked me in Igbo, and everybody was very effusive. And then I said, Biko, Baharam, and then I proceeded to respond to them in English. And everybody burst into laughter and said, this is our wife. What are we going to do with you? After 36 years, you are still not speaking our language. I said, Biko, Baharam. That's probably the only thing I can say in that. But you see, how is it that they're able to accept that and not be offended that after 36 years, you still don't speak our language? There is a way to do it. And that is the way that anybody who has had a breach with their family has to learn. And if anybody has such an issue and they would want some one-on-one guidance, it's okay to talk to me.
Awesome. Biko Baharam. Okay, I've had someone send a message asking what Igbo is. So I was glad when I heard you say Igbo language. So for the benefit of our international viewers, our foreign guests, Mrs. Modupe Ehirim is a Nigerian and originally from the Yoruba tribe, married to the Igbo tribe. Okay, just so we give some perspective. Thank you.
In fact, we're going to ask you a question to say, do you speak Igbo in your house? What language do you speak? And so you kind of touched it, but do your children speak Igbo?
You know, we chose to speak English. With the benefit of hindsight, that's one thing that we probably would do differently. We chose to speak English because that made it easy for us. I did not speak Igbo. My husband did not speak Yoruba. So we thought to ourselves that, look, let's not begin to crack our brain. Let's speak English. And so as our children came along, we spoke. It was interesting because so a Yoruba person will come to my home and I will talk to them and speak in Yoruba. And then I will turn back to my family and actually speak to them in English in the same conversation. So that means that it was in my head. But what that did for us was that it meant that we were speaking in a language that we both understood, we both thought in, and that breached some communication gap because we had the option of saying, no, let's speak Igbo so that you can learn. And I probably would have learned faster, but then there would be, because one of the things that confused me, and for our international audience, you know, I'm using this to just show you how very intricate this situations is, especially when you're saying, hey, she should learn the language or he should learn the language. I was coming from a tribe that we had dialects, but there was already a well-respected and accepted dialect. So if you're a Yoruba person, there is something that you can speak. What did that mean in my mind? It meant that if I'm going to another language, I'm also thinking they should have one dialect that they speak. And then I marry my husband and find out that there are numerous dialects. And so I say something to somebody and then they say, no, that's not how to say it. And then, you know, I'm thinking, but the other person told me this is how to say it. And that caused confusion for me. So that was the root of our own decision to make English the lingua franca in our home. Because for us, relationship and connection was more important than all of the other factors that were going to be. But with the benefit of hindsight now, I wish that we had done that and also put in place a structure for eventually speaking our local languages in our home.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay, so when you have, what cultural adjustment, what adjustment do you have to make when you have a relative from your husband's extended family visit? If you have someone from your husband's extended family coming over, what adjustments do you need to make?
Okay. Just one, actually. And I will tell you the reason. Well, yeah, just one fundamentally. One of the things that my husband and I did at the time that we were getting married is we also looked at the protocols of our home. And we had agreed that we would not be having guests staying with us without letting us know that they were going to come and how long they were going to stay. Now, when we made this decision, we didn't leave them to discover it. Each of us actually went back to our families and also helped them to understand that our home, we didn't say we don't want you to visit. We said, you know, we go to work and, you know, both of us are career people and so on. At that time, there wasn't telephones and everything. We said, so, you know, if you just land on us, we may not be able to make all of the arrangements that we need to make you comfortable. So if you tell us that you are coming, we'll be able to confirm to you, one, that we will even be around. We would not have gone on duty tour. and then two, would be able to make adequate arrangements. So what it meant is that people who were coming into our home already knew that these people, they have a way of doing it. But because relationship was important for us, we always tried to communicate in a collaborative way that helped people to understand why we were doing what we were doing. I had an interesting experience, when my mom-in-law visited and I called my husband by name, and she said, how can you be calling him by name? And I then asked what she thought I should be calling him. And she gave me an Igbo term, which meant my Lord and Master. And I was miffed, and I spoke to my mom about it. Wise woman that she was, she then asked me, how many weeks is your mother-in-law going to stay in your house? And I said, only a couple of weeks. She said, are you going to die if you do that for a couple of weeks? So I did it. And then she went back, and that was the end of it. And so I don't remember that I ever called my husband Lord and Master after that incident. And a second thing also was, I grew up in a home where everybody sat at tables. So usually I would set the table for everybody to visit. And once my husband's younger cousin visited, and I set the table and invited him to come and eat, and he said no. And I was just flustered because there were just three of us. I could not understand why he didn't. And, my mind was already going, if he knew he wasn't going to eat, why didn't he tell me, and so on and so forth. So I went and told my husband and said, you should talk to your cousin. My husband now said, no, he won't sit at table with me. I'm much older than him. So I then understood that, okay, it didn't make sense to me from where I was coming, but it explained why he was reluctant to come and eat at the same time as us. So we ate, and then he came later on to eat his food. So that's why I said the things that look at people like shock, it's a shock to your system, chiefly because that's not what you are familiar with. It's not wrong or right. It's just the way that the other person is familiar with and expects things to be done. So those, I would say, of course, the biggest of them, that was the biggest shock for me, and it is a small thing. In my home growing up, when you're boiling chicken, the person boiling chicken picks up the gizzard, puts it in their mouth and chew it, even while cooking, and nobody would ask. Every time I cooked chicken in the first year, myself and my husband quarreled. Why? Why did you eat the gizzard again? Why did you eat the gizzard? You are not supposed to eat the gizzard. And then I will retort and say, what do you mean? If you want the gizzard, I can go to the supermarket and buy a bag of gizzards, And then he will say, no, you are not understanding me. When you're killing a chicken, when you're cooking a whole chicken, you are not supposed to eat the gizzard. Eventually, one day, both of us calmed down. And then he said to me, it's you I'm trying to save. I don't give a hoot about gizzard. But if my father or my uncle or my older brother gives you a chicken, a live chicken, in Nigeria, we still do that, and you dress this chicken and you cook it, what you're supposed to do is serve it to the oldest man around. And that was just news to me. Then I also learned that the feet of the chicken belong to somebody, the head of the chicken belonged to somebody, and I got a whole education. Subsequently, I had to retrain my mind not to take the gizzard and pop it into my mouth when I'm cooking. Yes, gizzard issues didn't just start.
Awesome. It's amazing the perspective you get when you seek to understand where the other person is coming from. And I mean, this would apply to anything in life. As we interact with people, we just, like Stephen Covey would say, seek to understand and then seek to be understood. Super. Thank you so much, ma'am.
There's a question that came to my mind while we were talking, and I thought that how do your children feel about coming from two ends? Do they feel a sense of conflict within them? Are they identifying as Igbo, or are they identifying as Yoruba? How are they identifying themselves in the world?
Okay. one thing, as I said, that my husband and I agreed very early is that we were Igbo people. In fact, I refer to myself as well as Igbo. The only thing I say is I'm an Igbo woman who has Yoruba origin. So in our family, there is no, you don't have to think about it for our children. Yes, you don't have to think about it at all. So we identify as Igbo. However, they coming from an intercultural marriage means that they're facing consequences and impact that they did not choose. So, for example, I said that me and my husband chose to speak English to one another. We didn't think ahead, to think of people who are going to be looking at them when they're grown and be saying, what do you mean? You're an Igbo boy, you can't speak Igbo. What do and be insulting and cantankerous to them, because when people say those things to them, they feel bad. They feel bad. So one of my daughters said to me, Mommy and Daddy, when you folks decided that English was going to be your lingua franca, did you communicate it to all these other people that it is you people who are deliberately not teaching yourself? So because every time they look down on us as if we're less than somebody because we don't speak this language, So as for doing, that's why I said we defined our own culture. So my parents helped my children to understand how to greet Yoruba people. So it's very funny. My children will meet Yoruba people and genuflect, and do all of those things. They will be talking to Igbo people and they won't do that. Because when they know how to be with whoever they are with. I have those of them who like Yoruba food, and Yoruba food is their favorite, even though we weren't cooking it in my home. And I have those of them who love Igbo food. I have my sons who would not eat swallow in one plate. And I have one of my daughters who doesn't care, So it reflects in their life that they come from an intercultural background, but all of those practices are unique to our own family. So we're an Igbo family. Yes, there are Igbo practices and traditions that we have adopted, but we also have things in our own family tradition that reflects that one parent is not from Igbo land. But as for the children, there's no confusion in their mind at all, because it was a decision. And I would urge every family that is in an intercultural position to make this decision, because sometimes people will say we want our children to have the benefit of the two places. They will, just by reason of you folks marrying, they are having the benefit of coming from the two places. But for reason of identity, it's good for them to know where they come from and what it is that they do. So for my own children, for example, I think that I have helped my children to understand Igbo culture more than my husband. So my husband is likely to say, that's our culture. Then I'm likely to go and find out why do they do it that way? Because being an outsider, being somebody who came from outside, I understand that the person, I'm going to use that fishy water thing again. My husband has lived in the water all his life. I came from land into water. So I have to be finding out, I don't just want to be doing anything because they said I did it. Why do they do it? I had to learn to survive in water. I understand that my growing children have to learn to survive in water. Why? Because we didn't live in the village. So there is a lot of things that people will say, oh, they're Igbo people, they should know. But by reason of living in the city and living abroad, they're not exposed to it. So it means that an intercultural family has to make the decision about who they are and have to have a strategy and a plan in place for helping their growing children to adopt and to acculturate. And I would even say it, you know, for every, I mean, look at you folks now, Chidi and Victor. Are you English people? Are you Nigerians? Are you, you know, so you have to come to a decision about who you are and what identity your family will have, and then define your family culture, which will probably be a blend of all of your experiences, and intentionally help your children to grow into that identity, so that when they're grown, nobody would be able to say to them, you say you're an Igbo person, eh? What kind of Igbo person is you that you don't know how to eat swallow? They would know that I'm an Igbo person, I have a unique identity.
What keeps coming through as you speak is the intentionality you give your life. I mean, generally, you're intentional, and to think that you and your husband sat down and decided on what identity to adopt, especially for your children. I think it's very instructive, even for any parents who is living anywhere. Like, you have a lot of people in the Western world now. Let me give a practical example. A lot of Nigerians in Western world. So how do they identify themselves, like you were asking? So it's something we need to be deliberate about so we can pass it on to the children. Otherwise, I think we'll have children who will be just there lost in limbo, not knowing what to do. Thank you so much. I mean, we can unpack a lot of things from what you've shared. You just drop in it, and there's just so much to think about. I'm sure a lot of people will be watching this again later just to pick on some of the things we've missed out on. We'll still come back. I have a question for you. Do you ever feel like you missed out on something by not marrying from your tribe?
Not really.
Not really.
You know, when I read that question when you sent it to me, I thought about it and I said to myself, have you ever wished that maybe you should have married a Yoruba person? Honestly, the thought had never crossed my mind, ever. And it will go back to what you said. For me, as a person who was growing up, perhaps because my parents had helped us to understand that what makes the person is the person. So generally in life, when I look at people, when I have friends, I'm not really, it matters not too much to me where you're coming from, what religion that you are in, and anything. It matters to me who the person is. So once I married my husband, and there isn't anything that he has done as an Igbo man that I haven't seen Yoruba men do to their wives. So if he hurt me, or if I hurt him, we hurt one another because we were human beings. It isn't anything from our culture that was responsible for that. To be honest, I think that many of us have adopted a lot of paradigms without thinking them through. So for example, if I had been, okay, let me give you another thing that is not to do with ethnicity. I grew up in a Baptist church. And in the Baptist church, you know, it's participatory, the congregation takes part, you know, and everything. And I married my husband and I went into the Anglican church. Number one, the impression I had always had of Anglicans is that they're people who read their prayers from the Bible. You know, so I was going, of course, very reluctantly because all of the things that they're supposed to do. But my very first vicar, again, coming from a background of before you begin to participate actively in anything, find out about it and be sure that it is something you really want to do with your heart. I went to him and said, sir, I was not born an Anglican. What does it mean to be an Anglican? And he told me to go and buy the Book of Common Prayer And I read through, all of those things, order of service, order of baptism, order of confirmation, order of, everything. And then finally I arrived at 39 articles of religion. And 39 articles of religion stated expressly all of the things that my Baptist church believed and practiced. I found out that the collect, yes, there were prayers that people read, but they were summary prayers from scripture. So it meant that all of the things that I had picked up along the way and that had made me to be suspicious of Anglicans were just things that I borrowed from other people. And even to my shock, I was sharing some of this knowledge with people who grew up in the Anglican church, and they didn't even know it. So there are many. I always say to people, there's an exercise I encourage people to practice from time to time. Do it every 3 months, every 6 months max. Just sit down and ask yourself, what are the basic beliefs I have about life, about people, about certain situations? Where did that belief come from? Are there people in this world who don't hold those beliefs so strongly? Is their life worse because they don't hold those beliefs so strongly? That helps you to really look at things that you have picked along the way without really examining them. And you have adopted them, and you are even ready to fight to finish. And yet it may turn out to be something that you don't need to fight over. Chidi can have his view, Victor can have, Chidi can have a view, Victor can have his view, Modupe can have a view, and we can live merrily together. But because we've never examined the background of those beliefs, we think that the world will crumble if we don't save that belief and we get into fights with our partner or other people in the family.
Awesome.
Man, this has been an exposition. My head is popping, things are flying in my head because, man, I'm the kind of person that processes knowledge very fast. So saying things is making a lot of adjustment in my head. We are from the same ethnic group, but we are from different states. So there are adjustments that I'm saying, oh, this is why. Oh, that is why. And also thinking, man, some of the things that we take for granted, you just say we're going into marriage, this is what we are going to do. It's much deeper than that. And your approach to everything that you do is very instructive. Before you put your 2 feet into something, go and research it. Don't just say, oh, I love him, I love her. That is good to start up with, but it's not adequate, it's not enough. Her parent came to my own village to come and find out about my family. Some families don't do that anymore. So these things are not there just because they are cultural stuff. They are things that we have to do. You have to go and know what you're getting into. Know if that's what you want to get into. Know if so that you do it with all of your heart. So you won't come into a family and you are feeling like everybody hates you, but it's just that you are misinterpreting what is happening. It's a process, it's a problem of interpretation, honestly. So many things to learn from you. So we would like to just, as we are rounding off, we'll have this question we'd like to ask is, you've been married for 36 years. This stuff that we're summarizing in less than 1 hour it's more than 36 years journey because you met each other before you had marriage is actually 36 years. So you've been friends before 36 years. So this stuff we're trying to summarize, it's sounding so wonderful. There are principles that have helped you to get to this point. And you alluded to that fact when you said, there are principles that helped you to live out and to create the kind of marriage that you want because you were intentional about it. I think someone wrote that comment that's, intentionality about how you do things. And it shows in the structural way you go about entering a new environment, a new unknown every time. And you have always conquered it. Talking about how you were entering the new tribe, how you were entering a new religious gathering, how you were trying to raise your children, everything you did that you were doing for the first time, that was a systematic way you were going about it. And I want to put that as a feather under my cap. But tell us 5 critical habits that has really helped you to sustain your marriage for over 36 years, going to 4 decades. Less than 4 years. Fantastic.
When I read that question, I had to really think about it. And the things that make a couple to stay together, they're much simpler than people, whenever these people are thinking you're going to say some really obonge things, So I looked at it. Number one, myself and my husband, we have always slept in the same room every night, except we're in different locations. Now, people may wonder, what does it matter, sleeping in the same room or sleeping in the same bed? People can quarrel. Because we were very intentional about our marriage, the thought that we're going to go and sleep in the same room at night made us to address a lot of issues. So that's the thing. The second thing is that we made every effort to have dinner together. Since we've been married, we have dinner together, except we're in different locations. In Lagos, it was difficult for us because we had to choose between doing that and eating early for good health. So sometimes we had our dinner late. But why did we do that? It meant that no matter what happened in our day, we came back together at the end of the day and did like a debriefing. In fact, when the children were young, even if my husband is not yet back, they too will sit at table and I will sit with them and it will be, how did your day go, and so on and so forth. What it meant is that we did a lot of intentional interaction with one another. So during dinner is when we do daily debriefing. We talk about our day. How did your day go? What happened? What upset you? Or if there's anything we need to talk about and decide, we would also talk about it during then. The third thing is that we accepted that it was okay for both of us to have different interests and to spend time apart. Sometimes I'm perplexed, when I see people saying, my husband doesn't want to do everything with me, or my wife doesn't want to do everything with me. Even if you were two peas that came out of the same pod, you're still going to have some unique characteristics. What we do, and which I encourage people to do, is make your different interests your connection point. Anybody who follows me online knows that my husband has been a fan of Liverpool Football Club for more than 40 years. I, on the other hand, I cannot sit down to watch a match. But then during the week, we talk about it. Oh, so your team, how are they doing? Where are they on the you people lost. What does that mean? Why are you praying for Manchester United to lose? And all this. So, and a lot of the information I used to have this conversation, I actually get from Google, So meanwhile, when my husband comes in the evening, he'll go to Liverpool football website, he will study it, he will do a lot of things. If he asks me to do that, I will die. So he's unique in that I have my own interests as well. So it's okay to have different interests. It's okay to enjoy other things, but just take those other things and make them, conversation and things. So what happens is that I look up, so I can say, hey, are you people buying a new player? He will say, how did you know? I say, when I was listening to the news, they mentioned it. Or he will come home and say, I was reading the newspaper today and I saw an interesting something about marriage. I will show it to you. So what do you see there? Even though we have different interests, our different interests are not separating us, they're connecting us. And for those who are interested, if you go to my YouTube channel, The Right Fit Marriage Academy, Modupe Ehirim, you will see, I actually have a video that I did there where I said how to use football to connect your family. And I just shared there how me and my husband do this. And you can take it with anything. So accepting that it's okay to have different interests and to spend time apart is something I think has critically helped my husband and I. So he's not intimidated by the fact that I have other connections. We talk about it. I'm not upset that he interacts with other people. We talk about it. Anybody who comes into his life, he tells me, we talk, you know, so, but I don't feel a need to be friends with some of them because, as I said, I have to manage my emotional energy. If I'm to follow all the tracks that are making demands on my emotional energy, I will die. And I really didn't want to die. I wanted to be somebody, and he also the same. The first thing that we do is that we call and we speak to one another during the day. Mundane things, you know, so I just around 5 p.m., I say, so hello, how are you? How was your day? How did everything go? That's what we do. Or in the morning, you know, when he's going, I say, okay, let me just see you off. So what are you planning to do today? Not really. So those connection points, one, make you know a lot of things about one another. And so if my husband has said, I'm going to leave home, I plan to leave home early tomorrow morning, immediately I think through, So I said to him, you said you want to leave home early tomorrow morning. He said, yes. He said, I have an 8 o'clock meeting. No, that means I won't be able to make you breakfast. And then he'll say, okay. So a lot of things happen when we are having those connections. So we call and speak to one another during the day just once, not really so many things. And some of these things that I'm talking about, the Gottmans, who are internationally known for their work in relationship, have said that there is 5 hours that they recommend that you put in every week. And if you do that 5 hours, you'd be amazed what it will do to your relationship. If you go to my Instagram page, if you just scroll through, you will see it there. Simple things. Take time to wish one another a good day when you are going to work. Actually pause and hold one another's hand or do something like that. Then in the evening, do the same and ask how things go. And they put all of these things together, a total of 5 hours of things that you won't even think are significant things. But that connection helps you and your partner to remain. So us having a strategy for constantly connecting definitely helps. Then we both make effort to learn how to do marriage better. But, and that's a really big but, it caused trouble until I learned it. Don't insist that the way that you learn or the platform that you learn from is where your partner must learn from. So for example, if you enjoy listening to the Akunnas on Foundation for Family Affairs, you don't have to say every day, I'm telling you, these people, they have good things. If that may not be their interest, what is important is that they learn. How do you use it? You know, so this is what I do. I say, Bonnie, there's one fantastic book I just read. There are many things that one doesn't know in this life. He's not even saying anything, but I know he's listening to me. I say, Oyinbo people are wonderful. And then I would just, say the things. And then I would even say to him, what do you think? Because frankly, is he going to respond to me? I don't know. I just want to pass the information on to him. And then maybe if I start leaving it out, I'll say, see, this thing they said is really working. I'm doing it and I can see that it's making a difference to us. So even if your partner never reads or watches any video or anything, you can become their teacher. And remember, if you become their teacher, because some people say to me, hey, is it only me who is going to be doing everything? Hey, excuse me, you're taking responsibility for your happiness. You will be happy if your partner is doing better. You think they should read books, they're not reading books, because read the book and translate it into bite-sized lessons for them in your connection and interaction places. And you'd be amazed at the amount of impact that you're having. Then the last one, each of us pursue personal development and personal growth. I dare say that one thing that could have made marriage difficult for me is if I married somebody who didn't understand that I was just somebody who loved to learn and who loved to grow and who loved to try out new things. And so I'm speaking to the person who is feeling, hey, I'm growing, you know, I'm walking 20 miles and he or she is not even walking 1 mile. Remember your unique map of the world. If you're learning very fast and you're very enthusiastic about these things, all it is just showing us is that you had the privilege of being nurtured to be somebody who is very exposed to learning and things like that. And your partner is your partner's interaction with you is probably the first time that they are even being exposed to that. So is it possible that they will sprint at the same pace as you? No. I have a principle that I share with people who are in that situation. If you have ever had a child and you have potty trained that child, just think back to that experience. There is no child who knows the reason why they are being potty trained. So you tell them what to do, you know, like some of them, they will actually run away from the potty and then they will go and poo in their nappy and you will be tearing your hair out. Why are you tearing your hair out? You know that if this child is not potty trained by 6, it will be an embarrassment to you. The child has no idea. The child doesn't know. I mean, the child just thinks that you are being a pain in the neck. So have you ever seen a parent who abandoned potty training their child? No. The parent potty trains the child, not because of the child. The parent potty trains the child because they don't want to be the parent of a 6-year-old who is going to school and who is still going in diapers. So they're actually doing it for themselves. So if you take what I said first, which is understanding where your partner is coming from and applying this potty training mindset, you can actually be the person that will have the greatest impact in your partner's life, regardless of how resistant they are to change.
Awesome. Mom, you've been dropping gems.
Mommy,
wow, there's been so much you poured in there. And I like something Relationship Builders Forum said. We can make our different interests or our conversation points. Just trying to reiterate what you said in the course of speaking. I mean, there's so much. We won't even want to unpack it because it will take us another maybe 30 minutes to do that. You know. Okay, just you want to react to it before?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So I would like to say thank you to everyone who's joined us. Thank you, our viewers. You've been amazing. Thank you for just chiming in, dropping the comment. You've made it really interactive and engaging. Thank you. And Mom, I know you've been running something for men, and you talked about your one-to-one session. Do you want to say more about that?
Yes.
Okay then. All right. So here is what I do with people. First, you can join my Facebook community, the Right Fit Marriage Academy. There's a reason why that community is there. I believe that the way we learn about life and marriage is that we exist in a community. Sadly, in today's world, we're dispersed in different places. So the Right Fit Marriage Academy community is just a place where, we're just interacting with one another the way we would do in a small village. So that we discuss marriage and other issues it's happening the way we would do life ordinarily. So if you'd like to be a part of that community, please go and ask to join. That's probably people say, can you mentor me, and so on and so forth. If you are in that group, you are already being mentored by me and by a lot of other people who are also there. Then I do one-on-one sessions with couples and with single people. The first thing, I wouldn't like to say this is what the program is, the first thing I always do is you would do an exploratory session with me. What's an exploratory session? When you get to meet me, I don't know you. So I may not even be the right person for you to be talking to. In the exploratory session, you would have done a mini assessment that helps me to get to know you. We will talk and I will get insight into what your issues are. Then I will tell you which of my programs that you should go to, or I would refer you to another of my colleagues who I think will do a better job for you. Information about this is on my website, rightfitmarriageacademy.com. I also do premarital preparation for couples who want to get into marriage. Information about that is also on the website. I have written a book. For the international audience, is the audio version that you'd be able to get. It's called Marriage is Not a Trap. Marriage is Not a Trap. I wrote that book because as I started the work about 6 years ago, I found out that many marriages that are cracking have no business cracking. If people just understood what expectations were, understood what unrealistic expectations are. Let me give a quick explanation of what an unrealistic expectation is. So Bonnie marries Modupe. Modupe lived in Lagos all her life. Bonnie is now expecting Modupe to be able to do Igbo cultural things in the first year of their marriage without any complaints. It doesn't matter how nice that is, that's an unrealistic expectation. Why? Dupe needs to be brought in. You need to, what's that thing they do for people when you join a new firm? Onboarding, time to get used to it, and so on and so forth. And it's probably going to take 3 to 4 years for her to become comfortable. So when you have that expectation, you're already creating trouble. The misunderstandings you have in those 5 years, it's not the things you want done and she's disagreeing to or is disagreeing to that is happening. It is because your expectation is unrealistic. So in the book, Marriage is Not a Trap, is primarily educating people about understanding what expectations are, how they should be set in different areas that research has shown causes trouble, and then how should those conversations be had. And it has a workbook. So I cannot immediately, I'm still trying to understand technology. If you go to my Instagram, I think if you go to my Instagram profile, there is a link where you can get the book from. And for those who are in Nigeria, the hard copy can be shipped to you wherever you want it. So that I would definitely want to say. The quickest way to reach me, DM me, send me an email, modupe@rightfitmarriage.com, DM me on Instagram. I would respond to you immediately, except for Saturdays and Sunday when I take a break from work.
Thank you so much for that. And for our viewers, we have it in the description box. So if you just click the description box, you'll find the links there. Just click on the link and it will take you there directly. People have been loving up on you, Mommy. We have Relationship Builders Firm saying, thank you so much, Mommy Mo. We love you. We have Love Arab saying, God bless you all. I sincerely appreciate you, Mommy Mo. We have Ayadele saying, helpful perspectives, well shared. God bless you. God bless your ministry. Amen. Just a few to let you know, people have really gained from this. We appreciate you and thank you so much for all you continue to do, impacting the community.
Thank you so much, Mommy, for honoring this platform. We really appreciate you. And thank you, everyone, all of you that have been sharing. sharing and communicating and staying here and asking questions. Thank you so much. We appreciate you guys.
Please feel free to share this with your contacts. Let's spread this message. Let's impact more families. Let's impact more marriages. Let's impact intending couples as well. Fantastic. Okay, armed with information, like she said, people shouldn't be having problems thinking their marriage is a trap. Absolutely. Okay, so marriage is beautiful if done right, with the right perspective. So let's go on and do it. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please feel free to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you're notified when we're on. All right, so thank you. It's been amazing doing this. Thank you to everyone who's come on today. We hope to see you again shortly. Look out for our videos every week. And until we come your way again, it's goodbye.